once again, we are live. This is episode number 5 of Savages in the Bronx, live from Studio 54 in New Jersey and REM Studio in Staten Island, New York, airing exclusively on Twitch and powered by StreamYard. And welcome back to the show on this Monday, April 12th, 2021. I am your host, Rich Rivera, and I'm being joined by a gentleman and a scholar, Mr. Tom Wospil.
Neither of those are accurate at all.
No,
Richard.
not at all. No. You're a fucking savage. This is why you're my co-host of the show.
That's why I'm
How's
here.
the weekend, Tom? Good?
It was good, man. I had a golf trip for a buddy's birthday. We went down by AC, played golf for 3 days. Felt like I almost died on Saturday. I don't know if I just didn't drink any water. I think I just didn't drink any water and had just drank too much throughout the day, and I felt like I was dying Saturday night. I slept for 10 hours and woke up Sunday like everyone else had stayed up till like midnight, 1 o'clock drinking and like hanging out. And next morning we go out to play, and I was like, guys, I feel amazing. I slept for 10 hours. They were all hungover, so it was it was quite a time.
It's a recurring thing. It's every week. It's like I golf. I got fucked up. I felt like shit, but I was ready to go the next day.
I usually don't get too fucked up or too feeling shitty. I don't know. Something happened. It just was bad news for me. But how was your weekend, Richard?
Weekend was good, man. Unfortunately and shout out to the Staten Island Ball Buster softball team. Our opening day was supposed to be yesterday, and the inclement weather unfortunately derailed those plans. So our opening day got washed. So hopefully this Sunday we are actually able to get on the field and play ball. But yeah, other than that, it was pretty low key for the most part. I don't know. Like I'm pretty sure you're aware. A lot of my followers who are on Twitch right now are aware. I'm a huge wrestling fan, so it was WrestleMania 37 weekend. So I definitely enjoyed. Enjoyed is a stretch, but let's just say I just watched WrestleMania 37 for 2 nights, and it was something else.
You took in WrestleMania.
I took in WrestleMania. I think enjoyed was definitely a stretch of a word. That's for another time, for another show. That's not this, because we don't talk about wrestling on the show. We talk about baseball. We talk about the Yankees, the Savages in the Bronx.
Sure do.
Which of course the Yankees, by the way, are on the field again. We've reached another scheduling conflict, Tom, as the Bombers are in Dunedin, the temporary home of the Blue Jays down in Florida, and they're currently trailing 1-0 in the 3rd inning. But of course, the game's live, so we're looking forward to yet another positive reaction from the chat, from Tom, from myself, as this game proceeds.
I would sure hope so. Last week was real exciting with the Giancarlo moonshot, knocked out my internet. It was very exciting. Right. So we'll see. It's really interesting for me to see Dunedin look the way it does. We've talked about it like almost every episode. I've gone to more games in Dunedin for spring training than I can count, mostly because they serve alcohol there until the 9th inning because they don't care. So it's a lot of days in Dunedin are very long. And it's so weird. The state, it looks so nice. I know they did a lot of renovations. It looks awesome. So it's just kind of weird seeing it like on TV and not this like dumpy little stadium. It's so weird that it's across the street from this stadium is like a senior center. Like that's what's there. And there's like houses. Like it's a very weird spot.
That is like drunk, like arc ball softball status right there.
No,
like,
seriously.
You launch a home run, you hit a senior citizen walking out of the senior center.
A ball that's like a foul ball like behind the plate could hit the senior center. Right.
And hopefully does not harm any 60-overs walking out.
We hope not.
We hope not. And maybe in that case, we have to. You said it was in what? Beyond left field, beyond right field. Where's the senior center?
The senior center is like behind home plate, basically. But like out in the outfield, like I think like about beyond left field, there's like houses back there. So
okay.
Like if Giancarlo hit that ball he hit last week, he could break a window.
He could smash a window. All right.
He might.
Mike Cipriani status. Shout out to Sip. Yes, but that was awesome that we were able to see that live last week. So hopefully we get some cool highlights going on tonight. But we have a special guest, Tom, that's going to join us shortly. And before we bring him on, we're going to plug our Twitter. You can follow us at Savages Bronx. You can follow Tom at
Wospil 54.
You can follow me at Rich J. Rivera. Tom, who can we follow our +1 at?
Well, we had one Rivera, bringing on another one, an ex colleague of mine, where I currently work, where Rich currently works before Rich's time. Bringing on Joe Rivera from the Sporting News. Here he is here. How are we doing, Joe?
Gentlemen, thank you for having me on. And listen, before we get started, there's one thing I need to make clear, and that is I am not the interior decorator in this house, so please don't send me tweets about the stuff that's on the wall behind me. I think the love and the home are not particularly my flavor.
Those jet signs are embarrassing. I don't know why you would hang those on the wall.
That's for savages in the Meadowlands, man. I can't speak on that right now.
How are you doing, buddy? Haven't seen you for long.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Yeah, I'm coming up on. I heard a little of the pre-show talk from before. I'm actually coming on 5 years of Sporting News. So May 2016 was when I left my former life before the sports world, when I was working with you, Tom. So yeah, it's been crazy, man. It's been a crazy, fun 5 years. I'm doing well. Everybody's doing well. Fully vaccinated, ready to get my life back, ready to get our life back, get back to a little normalcy here.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. So Joe, you mentioned, works for the Sporting News. He definitely does a lot of work covering the Yankees, but also just covers a lot of just general Major League Baseball. So I was figuring we could start there. What are some of your thoughts? We're 2.5 weeks into the season. What's popping out to you?
Yeah, so I think for me, and you'll remember 2 years ago, the Reds, 2019, they had a really good pitching staff, but they just had no offense to go along with it. And through the early part of the season, they are smacking the cover off the ball right now. And when they get Sonny Gray back and when their pitching gets on the right track, I think they could be a real force in the National League. I mean, it's going to be tough for them to knock off the Dodgers if they even make it that far. But that division really hasn't improved much in the last few years. So the Reds are story number one for me, man. Nicholas Castellanos has gotten off to a really good start. Luis Castillo had a bad first start, but his second start, he was pretty much lights out. So the Reds, they're one of the preeminent stories at the moment. I mean, the Red Sox are also pretty hot. Sorry to mention that on your podcast, but I don't foresee that lasting much.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I still think it's pretty early. Obviously, we know that the Memorial Day is usually the measuring stick, but just a few of the things that are happening in Major League Baseball right now that have kind of caught my eye.
Well, Joe, I don't appreciate you bringing up the Red Sox on our Yankee program. I do appreciate a fellow Rivera. And you did mention the Castellanos, who is off to a great start. 9 games in, 324 batting average, 4 homers. So once again, another hot start for Castellanos, which is pretty similar to his 2020 line opening up that season. But Joe, thanks for joining us. Joe Rivera of the Sporting News, which you can follow at Joe Rivera SN on Twitter. So, yes, that's the scope of baseball, and there's a lot of fun stories coming out of this early season. Joe Musgrove's no-hitter recently. There's a lot of controversy with the instant replay situation happened last night with the Braves and Phillies game. But there's also something that Tom and I have been kind of butting heads on, because my man Tom over here had the rookie move of tweeting from our Savages of Bronx, our joint Twitter, stating his opinion on the extra inning rule, which me and him actually differ on. So the extra inning rule being, of course, the runner starting at second base.
Trash.
To start off the inning. Yes, going into extras. So, Joe, I wanted to get your take on that rule in baseball particularly.
I'm not a baseball purist. I wouldn't consider myself a baseball purist, but I can't stand the extra inning rule, and here's why. I think that when you have two teams that either are locked in, a slug off where you go into extra innings 7-7, or you look at it the other way where both teams are having difficulty scoring runs and they're scratching and clawing, you get into the extras 2-2s. Either way, you don't really need the extra inning rule. I mean, everything in baseball is earned, right? You have to earn your way on. And if the offenses are hitting where you're entering the extras, then you won't really need that runner on second. So I understand some of it is, listen, we don't want to burn out our arms. I know a lot of teams probably like it for that very reason. They don't have to worry about going 15, 16 innings on a meaningless, you don't want to say meaningless, but in a game in May, that might not mean as much when you're playing someone outside your division. But it's just one rule I can't really get behind, man. There's something about it. It just skeeves me out. And I understand both teams still benefit from it. When you're entering extra innings, but if you're going to go with the rule for me, then it's got to be saved for later in the extras. It's got to be saved for the 13th or 14th inning. I just don't like seeing it in the 10th. Even if they want to somehow speed up games, I don't see the exact correlation there. It's just there's something about it that destroys the fabric of the game for me.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the exact same way. I was even going to say the same thing that, if you want to say, listen, we get to the 12th, the 13th, you want to put a guy on second, because we got to move this along. I'm in for that. But in the 10th, the Yankees got burned by it twice early in the season, which I know Yankee fans have just disliked even more. I couldn't stand it when they brought it up last year. Yankees won yesterday. With the guy on second, they scored 4 runs anyway. Who knows what would happen without a guy on second? The old Michael K, the fallacy of the predetermined outcome. Mm-hmm. But I don't like it. And if any of you have ever seen a Twitter interaction between Joe and I, if we agree on something, it is. I mean, it has to basically be the gospel because I'm pretty sure if anyone looks at our Twitter interactions, they must think that we hate each other.
Usually the way it works is Tom will send me a tweet that I will vehemently disagree with, and then after tired of seeing it on Twitter, I'll send him a text, and then we'll argue over text. So, yeah, I mean, but yeah, this is one of the rare cases where we actually agree on something here. So, and thank you for finally having a good opinion, Tom. I appreciate that.
And then listen, these arguments that sometimes they're baseball related. Sometimes Joe, I haven't seen one in a while, but he has a lot of famous Mount Rushmore tweets. I remember a very heated argument about pies at one point of the Mount Rushmore of pies.
Pies, cookies.
I think I wanted apple in there, and you were like,
"Yeah, I need to." What is the Mount Rushmore of pies?
Okay, so you got to go lemon meringue, blueberry, cherry. I can't put apple because you see the thing is I'm allergic to apple.
What?
How do you not? I know it's great. Yeah, I mean, for me, I can't eat it because my throat will get all itchy and it'll close up, and I'll have difficulty breathing. So it's tough.
And I absolutely want a pumpkin on there, huge pumpkin pie.
Yeah, pumpkin pie. So those are the 4.
Okay,
I'm not a big. Yeah, I mean, I love pumpkin pie. My wife makes an amazing pumpkin pie, but I can't put apple because I'm allergic, and I understand that probably skeeves out a lot of people, but it's just the way it's got to go, man.
Right, and it's funny. Like I'm happy you brought pumpkin pie into the mix there because I was like, well, I don't know if that counts because it's like a not like crust on top kind of pie.
Right.
Absolutely a pie.
It's a pie.
It is the greatest of all pie.
All right. Well, I feel like we're having that John Sterling, Susan Waldman kind of conversation where we're getting away from the game. So let's bring it back to the game. In our chat right now, we have a few guys that feel the same way as Joe and Tom right now about the international rule, trash rule. International rule is fucking terrible. And then we have Sessa needs more innings pitched, which I don't know. But all right, that's just a common joke. So we're just going to at that. But let's talk about this team.
If we want Sessa to have more innings pitched, I guess we want the Yankees to be losing by 6 more, and we're just trying to eat up the last few innings of a game.
Right.
I don't want that.
I'll make my point real quick on the international. I definitely agree with you guys. I think there's room for it, but if they need to adjust it towards a later part of the game, whether it's a 13th, 14th inning deal, maybe give you like those first 2 innings and extras as normal play, but like to get the game moving along. And of course, I'm perfectly fine with playoffs, just straight up baseball as it is. Almost similar to what hockey does, where it's like, extended overtime, where it's just continuous gameplay until we get that final goal scored.
But at least hockey, the regular season, and granted, it's 3-on-3, but yes. Like you play hockey and then you go to a shootout.
Right.
You play baseball and then go to something that's not exactly baseball.
Yes, and I think there's room for that. And I think that's something that's going to be tinkered with down the line. I don't think this is going to be a rule that's going to stay with the game forever, especially with the CBA coming up. So, we'll see what happens there. But let's talk about the Yankees. Let's get into more of the Yankees. Early part of the season so far for them, and got off to a slow start, but obviously way too early here. 4-5 record to start off. 2 games behind the Red Sox in the AL East, but we really don't look at those standings until probably like late May, early June. But Joe, what's your take on this team so far in the 2021 season?
So I think what we're seeing this year is kind of more the same that we've seen in years past, right? And I think that the Yankees are kind of playing with fire this year because I understand that they have Deivi Garcia waiting in the minors and Clark Schmidt is waiting to come back from injury and he could be another ace up their sleeve, but when you're relying on guys like Corey Kluber and Jameson Taillon to give you something this year, and I know Kluber's had his struggles, Taillon hasn't looked too bad, But when you're relying on those guys to kind of fill out your rotation even early on, it's kind of a dangerous game to play because not only are they not really going to give you effective innings, but then you're going to go to your bullpen a little bit more than you have to. And we know how much the Yankees love using their bullpen as it is. And for me, when I see the way that they've kind of gone out in the postseason in recent years, and guys have even said it, we heard Tommy Kahnle, not with the team anymore, say it, but how many times can they see me in a 7-game series? They're going to figure me out eventually, is essentially what he said. And I think a lot of that's still going to happen with the Yankees, where the more that they use these guys, they're probably going to tire out a little bit more. Teams are going to get more familiar with them. But early on, it's more the same story. I don't know who out there is to be had in a trade. I don't know what kind of stuff the Yankees would want to give up in a trade at this point to get a starter, or who's even going to be available. But I think so far early this season, it's more of what we've expected. It's more of what we've seen the last few years.
Yeah, a lot of my concern in this, I know we're 90 games in. It sounds like huge overreaction time, but I think the Yankees are a team that have the puzzle pieces of a championship team. All the starting, guys on the Yankees, the key players of the bullpen, some even the main starting pitchers, are players who could play key roles on a championship team. But those pieces put together I don't think they're a championship team. They have too many of the same player. They have too many streaky right-handed power hitters. They have no lefties. They have 2 second basemen because Glaber has not really proven he can play an effective shortstop. The guys that can be moved, you don't want to move them, but it's just their lineup is. You get into the playoffs and you run into like last year when you run into like a glass now. It's just they can't. It's a tough matchup for them. And cool, you play Baltimore, you could smack them around, but I just worry about what's going to come in the playoffs. We know it's the only thing that really matters with the Yankees, and they just got a bunch of the same guys, and it's not good.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to and this is a controversial take, but over the offseason and early on, I was just thinking it's so easy to bring in such a team player guy like DJ LeMahieu back to this team, but does DJ LeMahieu give you the versatility of somebody that you can pick up, maybe make more of an effort to trade for a guy like Lindor, who's a switch hitting shortstop and kind of solves a few more problems than LeMahieu, House Oregon, and a guy who everybody loves, and I was happy to have him back. But you wonder if there was another move out in this past offseason where the Yankees could have split up that lineup a little better than just faulting to re-signing LeMahieu.
Yeah, I think for me, Rich, and you look at it, and I think the Lindor thing, you hit the nail on the head, where Lindor's a guy's a superstar, right? We know he hits for power, like you said, he's a switch hitter. He plays plus defense at shortstop. Gleyber Torres isn't really giving you the best defense at shortstop, right? And we've known this, and we know that he's not, at least early on this season, he's still having his troubles at short. And even at second base, he wasn't that great, but you can kind of hide him a little bit better at second than you can at shortstop. So to your point, I mean, I think part of bringing LeMahieu back too is he's a contact guy, right? And I was talking to Jeff McNeil a few years ago, and this was at the height of McNeil and LeMahieu were the talk of the town, 2019. These guys were it. Everybody was talking about these guys. And I was talking to Jeff McNeil about how they're kind of similar players in a lot of ways. And Jeff McNeil told me contact baseball is the new market inefficiency. And when you think about it, it's crazy because you're like, yeah, I mean, we love home runs, but now you see guys like LeMahieu and you see guys like McNeil making contact. And you see a lot of the guys who are being drafted now. You look at Nick Senzel in Cincinnati. I know he hasn't gotten a lot of run, but he was the guy that was supposed to make a lot of contact. Nick Madrigal in Chicago, who was drafted very high, and he's another guy his game is contact. It's not a whole lot of power. So I think bringing LeMahieu back kind of gives you more of that contact in a lineup. But like you mentioned, if you can try and wrangle a guy like Lindor, and it wasn't even a really top-heavy trade either, what the Mets had to pull to bring him over, and I don't see why the Yankees couldn't have matched the deal, but I guess at the end of the day, it's about the money that they probably didn't want to pay him.
Yeah, we talked about it a lot in some of the season previews. They didn't want to go over that luxury tax number. Lindor, who knows if they told Lindor, listen, we can't sign you before the season starts, but after the season we'll resign you. He kind of told the Mets if we weren't signed by opening day, we weren't talking all year. So who knows if it would have been different. But I agree, and that's what it kind of goes back to. The Yankees have a lot of guys who will hit 250, and maybe if they get hot, can hit 30 plus, maybe even 40 home runs. But they have, they'll go through streaks where they're 1 for 20 with 12 Ks, and those you get a couple of those going together in the middle of the lineup, it kills you.
And the thing is too, and sorry to cut you out there, but the thing is too, is like so many of these guys, I mean, they obviously work counts, right? Aaron Hicks works counts, Aaron Judge works counts. A lot of these guys are very good at working counts and getting on base, but you can only rely on DJ LeMahieu to get those runners in when he's the only guy that's still making contact, right? Like if Aaron Judge is getting on base 37% of the time, 40% of the time, whatever the case may be, but Giancarlo's standing behind him and he's only hitting 225, 240, whatever he's hitting, and it's a problem, right? And I know Gary's gotten off to a really good start too, but if these guys aren't making contact with the ball, and I'm telling you, contact baseball, that's the way the game's starting to turn now too. It's just, that's the wave of the future, which is, it's a weird thing to say, but it's going to start coming back around soon.
Yeah, and the Stan one is something that I understand why the Yankees got Stan. They got him at a discount. He was coming off of an MVP season. It was, they didn't have to give up really much for him. It made a lot of sense, but that was a move that you brought in another righty bat. I always thought, and Joe, I think you and I talked about this a lot. I wanted the Yankees to go out and sign Harper is what I wanted. Not saying he's a big contact guy, but he's a lefty. He's a lefty outfielder. And you got Stan a year earlier than you could have gotten Harper, and it's not like you would have guaranteed to get Harper. But I think if you have that big lefty bat in the middle of the lineup instead of Stanton, who I know is, you got the good and the bad. Looking at the playoffs last year, it's unbelievable. I think the lineup looks so much different with some different makeup in it.
I have another take that Yankee fans are not going to be happy with when I ask this question. By the way, if you're on Twitch right now, you have any questions for Joe? Feel free to fire them off in the chat. We're going to pay attention to some of the questions that are coming in through the comments while we have Joe Rivera on from the Sporting News, of course, and we're thankful to have him on Savages of the Bronx today. So, controversial take: should the Yankees trade Aaron Judge?
I don't know he has so much talent, but he's injured so much. Like what do you get for Aaron Judge right now? I don't think I'd want to trade him, but I just don't know what value. I'm not saying you're not going to get value. Obviously, you're going to get value, but you're not getting a 23-year-old stud. You're not. It's not what you're going to get at this point. So I don't know.
It's a good question. It's one that's certainly come up because I think a little bit more than his production is that it's his age, right? That's part of it. What do you give Aaron Judge? What kind of contract is he going to be looking for? And obviously his health. And I think by trading Aaron Judge, you kind of compound your problem a little bit because then you're going to be looking for a new right fielder. Who's your right fielder of the future? Are you going to be looking at Clint Frazier to move him to right? We know Giancarlo Stanton's long-term future obviously isn't in the outfield. So, I know you have some pieces in the minor leagues. Jason Dominguez, obviously, he's a name that's just going to keep coming up over the next few years. But, and I don't want to be Debbie Downer, but we heard this with Jorge Mateo, right? And we heard this with Estevan Florial, right? And we've heard it for years where this guy's the next big thing. He's the next big thing. And then what happens? Jorge Mateo gets traded for Sonny Gray. So, and I understand the Yankees, it's tough. They're in such a difficult position because I think they like Aaron Judge a lot because not just what he does on the field, his professionalism, his marketability obviously matters a lot. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he sticks around. He's the next Yankee captain, but like you mentioned, Tom, his health is a big question mark, and obviously gave you a scare a little bit already this season with his left side. Whatever was happening with his left side, it's like what hurts my left side, whatever that means. But it's a question that's going to be answered. I don't know if you trade him yet. I don't think they should because he's an elite defensive right fielder. You just don't get his combination of power and knowing how to work counts very often. This guy's always in a full count, so it's tough. This is definitely the prove it year for him. He's got to stay healthy, and I think that after the season, if he does stay healthy, then contract extension talks are definitely in the books for him. But if he misses another month, if he misses 2 months with whatever he's got, it's not going to be great for him long term.
It's 100% a make or break for Aaron Judge out there in right field. And listen, like, you love the guy. You can't. You hate to not root for a guy like that who, if healthy, could be the superstar of baseball. But 155 games in 2017, and it was the most amount of games he's played in, and he hasn't played the full season since. He's entering his age 29 season. Once you get to that wrong side of 30, those numbers really start to tick down. But I just think, like, is it a flash in the pan kind of deal? Is this guy just not going to be healthy enough to go through a full season? And yeah, Giancarlo Stanton, he's a guy who's meant to be on, a designated hitter. He's not going to be your prototypical defensive highlight reel and corner outfield, but having the flexibility to potentially have right field open for him is attractive. And to use that DH as a flex possibly, obviously most games would probably go to Stan, but to get these guys, to keep these guys on the field, having that flexibility would be helpful. It's just an unfortunate situation there. And it is truly make or break for Aaron Judge. And we all root for him as Yankee fans. We want to see him do great, but it's going to be very interesting if it's a similar Aaron Judge season that we've seen over the last couple seasons.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're talking about who you could trade, and as again, I really like this team. I think it has a good mix of guys and a lot of fun guys, and some of the fun guys are the ones that have the value to be traded. Luke Voit, I know he's hurt right now, led the league in homers in the shortened season last year, but he's a righty hitting first baseman. Imagine a league leader of home runs if he was hitting lefty. And the other one who I also like a lot is Clint Frazier. I don't even know what his value is at this point because of the ups and downs he's had with the Yankees, but those are the guys, even though I like both of them a whole lot, I would see as you could move, but I don't even know what they would, what their value would be with some of the injury stuff and then some of the ups and downs they've had.
Yeah, it's definitely tough, especially when you look at a guy like Clint Frazier, and he's the one I keep coming back to because I've talked a lot with Clint Frazier in the past when I've covered Yankee games, and he's a fiery guy, you can tell, and he wants to be a fire starter, and he wants, I don't want to say to his detriment because it's going to come off like I'm kind of deriding him, which I'm not, but he wants to be the guy. He wants to be the center of attention. You see it in his at-bats, right? You see it in his attitude, the way he plays. And that passion obviously has leaked over to the field in years past, right? So, and I'm seeing it. We see him miss dives and hit the ground and be upset with the way that he's played. But a team's looking for an outfielder. He has all the skill. He has all the talent. There's something there that he hasn't put together yet. And I think the fact that the Yankees were still iffy and bring back Brett Gardner for another year and keeping Mike Tauchman kind of tells you that, yeah, maybe we're still not 100% sure or 100% sold on what Clint Frazier is going to be. I think that the second that they brought Brett Gardner back, I put a tweet. I said, how long until Yankee fans are mad because Clint Frazier's been benched after being told that left field is his, right? And it didn't take long. Brett Gardner was batting third the other night, so
sure was.
It just tells me that this team is still very iffy on Frazier, and a young guy. He's obviously shown a lot of power. He was a top prospect. He was a Cleveland top prospect for a while. That still has some value. I don't know how much, but if you're looking for a mid-tier starter, I think that he could maybe bring you that back. I don't think he's going to bring you back Luis Castillo, who's not even out there. It's not worth discussing. But he's not going to bring you back a guy of that caliber this year. I don't see it.
Yeah, and I think actually I mentioned, speaking of Clint Frazier and speaking of Dunedin, I think I mentioned this on our earlier podcast we had. My favorite thing I've ever seen from Clint Frazier, one of them, is a spring training game. I was down there. A guy walked up to Clint Frazier and said, "Oh, we saw you. Me and my son love seeing you in Scranton. We have so much fun watching you there." And Clint Frazier looked at him dead in the face and said, "I hope I never go back to Scranton." And he was mostly, you could tell he was joking because, he didn't want to be a jerk to the guy and his kid, but he was serious, especially at the time when he was like, listen, I don't belong there. I belong in New York. I belong in the majors. And, it's like, it takes only so long until he might just get fed up with, keep getting benched for it. I'm a Brett Gardner guy, but if I'm him, you don't want to see Brett Gardner get all these starts over you again.
Yeah, and what sucks for Clint is that he really hasn't been given that run yet, right? He hasn't really been given that shot. He hasn't been given the opportunity to be like, hey, look, here are the keys to the car, drive wherever you want, but be responsible kind of deal. So, it's tough for him, but who knows? Maybe his future's not in New York. It's tough to say.
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks like, I don't know what's happened to Rich there. It looks like he's a little frozen.
I think we're good.
There
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
I think we just had a slight knockout. Did anybody hit a home run to stand here? Is that what happened?
No. Well, they're currently showing a picture of Rougned Odor without a beard, and it's
that's probably what's doing it. It's breaking the internet right now.
It's a look.
There we go.
It's a look.
All right, I think we're back. I believe. I hope. But anyway, I think we're good now. So let's talk about one of the most recent Yankee transactions. If you joined us, right, Joe Rivera of the Sporting News, he's joined us here for Savages in the Bronx. But we're going to wrap this up with a quick question with him, and then we're going to get into our fun segment called Guess the Graph, which is everybody's favorite segment here on Twitch. So, Rougned Odor, recently acquired by the Yankees. What do you think of the move?
Curious. I think that's the best way I can put it, is curious. Rougned Odor is a guy that we know that his most famous hit was punching Jose Bautista in the face, right? And that happened 5 years ago now, which I just discovered like 2 days ago. Almost 5 years ago that punch happened. So
he fucked him up.
Yeah, he really did. But man, I'm saying, where does the time go, man? But anyway, when you look at his numbers since then, he hasn't been the same player. He's had an OPS plus of under 100. He really hasn't had that same power. We know he plays decent defense at second base, but the Yankees also had Derek Dietrich in spring training, right? And I understand, like, a lot of people are like iffy on Derek Dietrich, but here's a guy, you essentially had a player who's had better production over the last few years at the major league level. And I understand I think he's a little older than Odor. Odor's 27. I want to say Dietrich's 30, 31. But it's strange. It's just a strange move. It's nothing that's like, it's just something you kind of like stretch out like, that's weird. And I guess that what they really want is they want him to showcase that power again. They want to find that power. We've seen this in the past where whether it's Gio Urshela or what have you, or Luke Voigt, the Yankees seem to identify a guy and they seem to identify the problems and fix them at the major league level. So they're probably thinking the same thing with Odor and hoping that they can try and fix him so he can give them a little bit of lefty power and also slot in for third base, where he was playing all this spring, and he was apparently very good playing third base too. So it gives them a little bit of versatility in the infield too. But it's not a move either way that I really think to myself, like, it's not something that I think to myself and waste a lot of energy on. It's just a move that kind of happened.
Three separate seasons of 30 homer seasons for Mr. Odor, and of course I think the funniest note of this whole thing is when Odor shaved his face, his own daughter was afraid to look at him. So I thought it was a fun story. And honestly, that's probably a discussion for another time, how we feel about the Yankees' facial hair policy. But that's a fun conversation down the line. But let's have some fun here on Savages in the Bronx. And
I will say real quick, Odor just scored. Kyle Higashioka with a home run to right center, 2-1 Yanks. I know people are watching; they're probably watching that as well. And you gotta love Higgy hitting one out. Odor scoring, so impacting the team.
Back-to-back weeks of homers happening during Savages in the Bronx.
They should pay us
stream during the fucking playoffs.
We absolutely should. I think the Yankees should give us some money for that, and just to guarantee some wins.
Absolutely, but I'm so with that. Anyway, if you're just joining us, Joe Rivera, Sporting News. He is with us here on Savages in the Bronx. You can follow him at Joe Rivera SN. Joe, any projects that you want to spot real quick with our Twitch fans listening in?
Man, I wish. Let me tell you, as you guys can imagine, the pandemic has upended so much about the sports industry, and obviously last year not really being able to get out to a stadium at all. This year, I don't know when I'll be able to get back, but hopefully soon. For fans, I guess it's, a side project of mine, aside from Sporting News, for fans who like any sort of entertainment, I do a podcast with my buddy, one of my best friends, called Two Nerds and a Third Podcast. We talk about it, every episode something different, but movies, video games, comic books. We haven't done one in a while, but we'll be back soon, hopefully. But I suppose that's the most exciting thing happening right now. But aside from that, hopefully I can get back to a stadium soon, man. I miss being there. I miss Shepherd's Place up in the press box. All you can eat food. I miss being down on the field, just taking in some batting practice. Hopefully we get back soon.
The thing is, last time I saw you was game 1 of the ALDS. I remember seeing you, for a little bit before the game. So it's definitely been a while.
Yeah. It's been rough, man. It really has. You don't know how much you miss it. And it sucks because, being at the stadium when I'm working, it's, pretty much a 12-hour day, door-to-door commute. But you get there and just time melts, right? And I think you guys know it's just being at the stadium, the time melts away. So it sucks. It sucks. This whole thing is really crappy. And with the collective bargaining agreement, we're not even sure. The baseball writers aren't sure how that's really going to work out in the future with clubhouse access and how that's going to go the rest of this season and into next year in the future. So things are going to look a little bit different, but hopefully I can get back on the field and share some awesome stories with the guys soon.
And hopefully catch some balls and maybe some autographs. So I guess that segues us perfectly to guess the graph.
Does it segue us perfectly?
It was so unnatural, it was so fucking chopping, and I'm mad at myself for doing that. So anyway, let's do it. Guess the graph. Tom has this ball wall. He has over 60 different autographs. That's off to you can see on his right hand side. Stage left, I guess technically, but yeah.
Thank you, Vanna White.
Awkward, very hieroglyphic of you, Tom. I like that. So anyway, let's show the ball that Tom wants to show us. There it is. That's the ball. So what is your guess, Joe? I guess we'll start with you because you're our special guest here, our +1. So what do you got as a guess here for this autograph?
Oh man, I have no idea. Jeez, it looks like I can't take a guess on this, man. I really don't know. Looks like it. Oh, is this? Oh, okay. Is this this is DJ LeMahieu, isn't it? No, it's not.
It's not DJ LeMahieu. Okay. It was not at the time. It was a Yankee. This person is not a current Yankee. I will say that. I got this one in Bradenton, Florida, home of the Pirates, 4 or 5 years ago or so.
Man, that's tough. I can't tell what the is that a F? Is that a J? I can't tell, man.
And of course, Twitch,
I'm blanked. I'm totally blanked here.
Twitch, you're more than welcome to throw out your guesses here. I mean, this is tough. And once again, Tom sent me this ball earlier today, and I had no idea. I looked at it for hours, and I still couldn't get it. I don't even have a guess, a good guess. It just
it's a position player. Not always. I mean, he spent some time with the Yankees. Isn't probably known as career as a Yankee. A very good player. A former All-Star player. Not I don't think he's someone you're going to say is a Hall of Fame level player.
We have a guess from Matt Zucker, Cameron Maben.
Is not Cameron Maben, but
I think I know. Andrew McCutchen.
It is not Andrew McCutchen. That was a good guess. That isn't. I will say that is an M in the middle.
Yeah, that's that much I knew. I thought there was a C on the end. Man, that's tough.
It is a C on the end. I will say that.
Okay. All-star player.
All-star player. Someone who also, like Brugman Odor, had a pretty burly beard, had to shave it to be a Yankee, grew it back after.
Shit. There's not a lot of those. Not Brian McCann, right?
It is Brian McCann.
No.
I'm assuming that's a B, like a BMC, and then
it's throwing me off.
And then the line is just ANN, I guess.
Yeah,
but yes, that is Brian McCann. And this was, I'll be honest, this was kind of a weird one. I remember I was there. We got his autograph before one of the games, and there was an old woman that was there who instantly Brian McCann recognized instantly from when he was in Atlanta. And the woman who she had cancer that she was recovering, but it was one of those things. He saw her and said "Hey," I forget her name, but he knew it. How are you doing? How are your treatments going? How is the family? Was naming family members by name. It was so cool to see someone. It's a fan, but he has a relationship with this woman. Was asking him how she was doing. Really cared about her. Especially for someone who has kind of a tough, personality on the field. I always think of him standing at home plate as the sheriff, people bat flipping, and just seeing the other side of him was really cool. He was a nice guy, and it was kind of so cool to see the interaction.
Brian McCann.
And Brian was an unfortunate one, man. He was an unfortunate one that didn't fully pan out, but he was it was just one of those you hope for more there as an offensive catcher, but that's a great pick there, Brian McCann. Definitely did not look like Brian McCann at all on the ball, but no. Brian McCann gets the grab. But we're gonna let Joe go here. Joe, we were so happy to have you on and joining us here on Savage in the Bronx. We hope to have you on sooner than later of the sporting news. Joe Rivera. Joe, anybody you want to shout out, thank, or what have you?
Well, thank you guys for having me on. I obviously appreciate it. It's always fun to talk a little baseball and get away from the office, so to speak. So thank you guys for having me on as always. And, anybody out there watching, you can follow me on Twitter at Joe Rivera SN. I'm always good for a few tweets, a few laughs here and there, but mostly bad tweets. So don't expect too much out of me.
Joe, I'll see you at the family barbecue this year, right?
Long lost cousin, wouldn't be surprised.
Probably, man. Probably. All right, Joe. Take care, buddy.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Me, Joe, and Mariano are just gonna have a great time this year.
Yeah,
it's gonna be amazing. It's gonna be a great time.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will.
Joe Rivera, Sporting News, great guy.
Great guy.
Knows
his stuff. That man knows his stuff. It's so interesting. He started in the kind of same position Rich started at, where we currently work. We don't name the place we currently work, but at the same place. And it's just kind of so cool to see him kind of where he went. I remember when he was ready to leave to take this dream job. It was such a cool thing, and to see all the great moves he's made has been it's been really awesome.
Yeah, of course, and we're looking forward to having him back on for another episode of SITB. But I want to let you guys know, and this is not a graphic that we had up or planned announcement, but I'm gonna say it now because I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. So in 2 weeks' time, that's gonna be on the April. I wish I had a calendar up. I believe it's April 29th, if I'm not mistaken. April 26th.
26. I was gonna say 12 plus 14.
Yeah, count your fingers, right? April 26th. So in 2 Mondays from now, we're going to have a very special guest on. So, of course, we've had some really cool guests. Joe just hopped off. John Jastrzemski 2 weeks ago. And in 2 weeks' time, we have somebody affiliated with the Yankees, actually affiliated with the organization. It's actually a former buddy of mine. I would say a former coworker, since I did some work for this team back in the day. He is the play-by-play commentator of the Somerset Patriots, the new AA affiliate of the Yankees, Mark Schwartz. So Mark's going to join us in 2 weeks' time on the program. We're going to talk about the Yankees with him. We're going to talk about the team, the transition from Somerset going from independent ball to AA baseball with the season coming up. I believe they start games in early May. So excited to have Mr. Schwartz on in a couple weeks.
It's gonna be cool. It's gonna be really cool to see his perspective on things and to hear what his thoughts are on going again from being play-by-play for the Patriots or a independent team to doing the AA of the Yankees. So it's gonna be cool to hear his thoughts on all that.
Yes, and of course we're going to talk to him also about a famous. He went internet famous a couple of years ago, Tom, and some people know about it. Many do not, but we are definitely going to talk about it in 2 weeks, where he actually called his own catch in the booth. There was a foul ball hit back to the booth, and he caught it and called it at the same time, which I thought was one of the coolest things I've ever seen any broadcaster ever do.
I want to see Sterling do that.
Yeah. You're Sterling doing it wrong.
Oh, yeah. Jim makes the catch. Oh, John.
John. Oh, what a beautiful catch by John. All right, Susan, let's go to the out-of-town score. Yeah, I can imagine that. That'd be awful. That was an awful John Sterling, by the way. But, yes, Mark Schwartz going to join us. He's going to probably teach me a couple things about how to work this microphone. So, yes, 2 weeks' time, April 29th. And, of course, you can 29th again, April 26th. But, again, you can check us out every week, Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time, right here on Twitch. We're happy to have you guys come back, of course, on Twitch. And we thank you guys for joining our show once again. We want to thank our Twitter followers, as always. You got to thank Joe, who did a great job today. We, again, looking forward to talking to him soon about the Yankees and the state of baseball. Tom, anybody you want to thank?
Again, thanks for Joe for stopping by. Today it was really cool seeing him. I haven't seen him in a long time. Again, the last time I think I saw him was game 1 of the ALDS, and I hope he comes by again.
Yes, sir. I cannot wait to be joined by Mr. Rivera once again. It's going to be a great time. But that'll do it, folks. We'll see you here next week, Monday night, 8 p.m. You know where to be. Take care.